They just fall over when the going gets tough. Nah, man.
Is there anything to be said about them playing under this meta?
Shotzi's a bust. Stay mad, big mad.
You guys both made very convincing arguments. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Contesting the Point. The regular season has finally come to a close, which means the time is here, my friends. It is officially champs season. But before we start deep diving into playoff talk, we got to talk about how the season ended at the Toronto home series. And today we have Nameless and Miles here to run it back over the last weekend. Fellas, how you feeling today?
Good, man. Ready to rock and roll. I mean, I say that. I'm exhausted inside and out. This weekend has taken a lot out of us all. It was insane from start to finish. But yeah, man, I'm ready to go. I've got some points to be made. I'm going to argue them to the death.
As far as I go, this last weekend was absolutely unreal. The matches from top to bottom surprised us all. I don't think anybody expected Ultra to come out and win their own home series and competitions at its finest, which means that I'm feeling good, man. I love Call of Duty. I can't wait for playoffs coming up, in a couple weeks.
Yeah, man. This weekend was full of tight and entertaining contests all the way through. But guys, let's go ahead and recap the rules for all of the noobs out there. This is how the game works. I'm going to present a headline from the CDL. I'm then going to give a hot take on the story. One of the guests will defend that hot take while the other attacks it. I'll award points for convincing arguments, and after 3 stories, whoever has the most points wins 60 seconds to pop off. And our Astro listen up moment is that Gucci.
Sounds good to me, man. Ready to go.
Let's get things cracking with that amazing run this past weekend by the Toronto Ultra, who defended their home turf valiantly. By winning their own home series, they've secured top 8 seeding in the playoffs and have avoided starting off in the lower bracket. That's huge. All weekend, the Ultra were giving teams that work and giving us some of the most exciting matches that we've seen this season. They 3-2'd Optic Gaming, they 3-2'd Chicago, and they 3-1 Dallas, and then they 3-2 Atlanta in the finals. It looks like the Ultra have really found the right time to start performing well as we head into the playoffs. Given their impressive performance this past weekend, my hot take is that Toronto are looking like a top 5 team, maybe top 4 going into the playoffs. Nameless, you're on the attack. How can you not give Toronto a top 5 spot after that victorious weekend they just had?
All right, so, after that last performance, it's pretty tough to attack this one. But, I thought about it a little bit more, and, there's some asterisks on it. I'm looking at teams like New York. I think New York is still in that top 5. The last 2 times they played Toronto have been in the last 2 months, and they're 6-1 map count against them. They 3-0'd them the last time they faced off at the New York home series, and New York has consistently been playing well. They've been making it to semifinals up until they won their grand final. I don't think you can just take this, Sunday with Toronto upsetting FaZe and all these game 5s that they had and immediately just place them in that top 5. They were a team that were in the bottom 4 of the standings all season long, right? They have one great tournament where they catch some steam, they catch some fire, and they win a ton of game 5s, and they end up winning the championship. But that's one tournament to get into the top 8. They haven't been in that top 8 all season long. So for New York, I think they've been more consistent. Their showing was a bit stronger in their own homestand that they won, winning in 3-0 fashion, dominating everybody on Sunday. And the last time these teams matched up, New York was the team that dominated them. And then also, we don't have too much time, but if you think about it, London Royal Ravens, there's a whole nother case to be made there for them to be above the Toronto Ultra, but I'll keep it at New York for now. And then it goes without being said, Chicago, Florida, Dallas, FaZe, you have to put all those teams above Toronto heading in the champs just due to the consistency that they've had throughout the season.
Even with all those teams losing to Toronto, they're still above.
Yeah, I mean, think about the season so far, right? Like a team can lose. I mean, the way Huntsmen fell out was obviously unfortunate. Empires looked fantastic. And, Toronto did have a little bit more to play for than those teams that were in the top 4. That added hunger can help them get over the edge. I mean, you think about champs and how much money is on the line. Like, I don't expect Toronto to be beating those teams.
Right. And they really needed that seeding position so they wouldn't start off in the lower bracket. So that's a good point. They had a lot to play for. Miles, what do you have to say to defend Toronto?
I just think that Toronto have blossomed at the right time, in the same way that New York did. New York, they were a little caterpillar going around, wiggling around the garden of the CDL, and then boom, they become a butterfly. They admittedly don't have a good run after that, but I just think that Toronto have done this at the very best time imaginable. If they're going to have another 2 or 3 weeks of this continued success, given the current form, given the shape of the meta, sweet! It's playoffs and champs. They have an ability now to actually make a massive turnaround and take a bad year, and Nameless is right, they were outside the top 8 for as long as we can, really remember. To turn that around with a solid placement at champs is incredible. Think what the headlines will read. It will be an amazing turnaround for Toronto. Do I think they're in a top 5 position right now? Absolutely. There is no one below them right now who I think can actually go toe-to-toe with big teams and take series like the way they did this weekend, and I have no reason to believe that after this weekend, going into playoffs, they will lose current form. Practice is going to be more rigorous than ever going into playoffs. No one's going to be letting up, and I think Toronto now have just got something to build upon. I think this newfound confidence, this ability to play the game better than they have ever played this year is only going to improve. Toronto, welcome to that top 5 spot. Who else you got? Rocker have fallen off. London can't close series out to save their lives. These is a team that's finally found their form. It's all gravy, baby, eh?
Yeah. Is there anything to be said about them playing under this meta?
I think it works out for them, pretty well. They've got really aggressive submachine gun players. We've seen Cammy snipe, catching these AR players out of position a lot of times. He's doing a wonderful job individually. I think the AR's on that squad as well. Bance had one of the best tournaments I think he's had since Black Ops 3. It was really good to see these players back on form, not to mention Methods being as clutch as you like, and Classic. When Classic has big games, he's arguably one of the most dominant players, on that squad. He makes such huge decisions, and he rides the teams out to big wins. So I just think generally, all around, the squad is in a perfect position. It's always been an interesting roster. It's a deep roster. Now they've finally managed to find the pieces that fit at the right time. The meta shift sort of helped, but I think they're in a great spot to keep this going for the rest of the year.
It's just tough for me to be completely sold on them just by the way that they won. Think about all the round 11s they had. Methods honestly shouldn't have won that 1v2 and they would have lost, So it's just a bit different. If he loses that 1v2, then you automatically have New York above them, right? Most people would, just because they have that championship and they look great. So I don't know. It's tough for me to put Toronto in that top 5 just yet, but hey, they had a great performance and they showed the tenacity and they were able to win. So it's definitely, there's an argument there.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument to be made. I want to jump ahead just a little bit to champs because in the first round, they have to go up against the London Royal Ravens, they being the Toronto Ultra. Do you guys have any insight on how you think that game might play out?
I think this game...
Go ahead, Miles.
No, go ahead, mate. No, go on.
Oh. I'm going Royal Ravens. I think the Royal Ravens will take that. I think that Ultra played better than they ever have this weekend. Going into that tournament, I expect all these other teams with the fire to be prepared. And, I think the talent will reign supreme when it comes to a tournament like champs. And I think the Royal Ravens have something to prove, man. People keep counting them out, myself included, for winning a championship. And they have the possibility to make a run. They have the talent there. And, after how, saddening their season's been, really, I think they'll be able to do it at champs.
I think I'm on board with Nameless there. I think London has an exceptional amount of talent, and this is what we've been saying since the start of the season, and the addition of Zero. Again, more talent, a better looking squad, occasional results that work out. But I just think when it comes down to that resolve, the ability to finish a match strong, the ability to clutch out around when you absolutely have to when it comes down to the wire. I feel like Toronto has shown us throughout an entire weekend that they can do it time and time again, even though this was a squad that was having those moments earlier on in the season where they were losing out to Chicago in Game 5s on LAN when things would they shouldn't have been in those positions. I just feel like Toronto are a team that now have found that confidence in those moments, the self-belief to go, we can win these moments, we can make that challenge and take it and win it. We are brilliant players. I wonder if I think it's just like the polar opposite for me when I think of London. London are the guys who cannot close out a game to save their lives. I said it before, I'll say it again. They just fall over when the going gets tough. Toronto's the absolute opposite of that. And I just think if it's going to be a tight series, and I think Toronto takes the edge. And that's hard to say. I'm a true blue. I was born in London. It's hard to say that out loud on the bloody internet.
Yeah. Well, it won't be in vain. I will say that, Miles, you made a lot of good points. Nameless, you did as well, because I feel like there have been teams that have looked great, like New York. They've been trending upward, like London. But I look at this last weekend, and the comment you just made, Miles, about just how close those matches were and just that clutch factor, it definitely rings true. I remember back in the Florida home series, Toronto was performing pretty well, and they ended up losing 3-2 on the Sunday of that home series to Optic. Gaming LA. So for them to turn it around at this tournament and 3-2 Optic, and then for them to beat top teams like Dallas, Chicago, and Atlanta all in the same home series event is really hard for me not to give them that. Plus, you pointing out that they could possibly beat London in that first round in a close match. I can definitely foresee that happening. So with that being said, I think I'm going to give this first round to you, Miles. Our count being 6-5 at the end of round one. I just don't see Toronto being any middle of the pack team anymore. I think they definitely legitimized themselves as a competitor. One of the more surprising results from last weekend was Chicago's elimination in the group stage. Now, on paper, Chicago appeared to be guaranteed to finish first place in Group A. They were going up against Seattle, Toronto, and OG LA. They breezed past Seattle 3-1, but then they lost the winner's match versus Toronto 3-2. Then they dropped down to play OG LA, who beat them 3-1. I think it's worth mentioning that it was a close 3-1, by the way. Now, out of the last three events the Huntsmen have played in, we've seen them take second place once. That was the New York home series, and bow out in the group stage twice, in Toronto and in Minnesota. To me, the Huntsmen aren't looking as threatening as they once did. So my hot take is that Chicago has fallen off in this new meta. Miles, I got you on the defense here. What is redeemable about this Huntsmen squad?
I don't know what is redeemable right now. I mean, the thing that redeems this Huntsman squad for me is the fact that they are still the Chicago Huntsmen. You look at the caliber of the squad, you look at the players on that one, you know, Scump and Formal, two of the greatest players to ever grace the sticks. You know, Envoy, our Astra MVP going into the end of this year. The mere fact they have Pristini and Arstes as well. You know, the Twins, world champs, the current reigning world champs. But these boys are not bringing it when they have to, man. This is an inconsistent squad who are struggling with matchups that they really shouldn't be. Last time we saw, you know, a final performance against them, against the New York Subliners, they went down. All things considered, a new meta, decent maps from New York is still a loss. The home series before that, they got knocked out by the LA Gorillas, you know, and to quote one of my good friends, like literally the worst team in the league, the lowest standing team in the league, eliminated two of the biggest stars in Call of Duty history. Like, that shouldn't happen, but it is. And now at this event, again, losing close series to OGLA, there's definitely some work to be done there. And I mean, I just don't know if that team is truly champs ready yet, if it's playoffs ready yet. I have a worrying, sinking feeling in my stomach that Chicago are just not quite all there now when it comes to this stage of the game. Yeah,
you're right. And it's not like they have an easy road to the finals here in Champs. They're going to be facing off right off the bat against the Rocker or the Subliners. Those are two very strong teams. Nameless, could you tell me why you think Chicago can still possibly do it and are still a top team right now?
Chicago's absolutely a top 4 team. They can definitely win champs, and they're one of the favorites. They have not fallen off in this meta. So just to be clear, your hot take is that Chicago has fallen off in this new meta. Okay, so in this new meta, let's talk about it. Formal and Arcides with an AR. Two of the best players in the game, two of the best ARs ever, world champions, those two, by the way. They have not fallen off in this new meta. Okay, so let's talk about it. They win a grand final when they add Pristini to their team, right? They win that championship. Okay, their search and destroy falls off. They get knocked out. All right, they fix their search and destroy. They go into the next tournament. They dominate every team in search and destroy up until the finals, where it was a rematch where they had previously beat New York, and then they lose to New York in the grand final. New York played out of their minds. You know, Chicago should have played better. They lose that. Grand final, still an impressive performance. In this tournament, they go up against Toronto, and yes, they lagged out. It was unfortunate for team morale, and they go up against Optic Gaming LA, a team that's hungry for a top 8 spot. They get edged out by the new guys. I think that I can cut Chicago Huntsmen some slack in this scenario. I think that this is still a team that looks incredible. They have great respawn players. They've been the best hardpoint team all year long. There's no debate in that. They've been the best hardpoint team all season long. Their search and destroy has taken a dip at times. However, they fixed it. Their search and destroy has looked great. They're even going to round 11s now and closing those round 11s out. So it's like they know what they're doing. They have their plans and they want to execute it. And they're executing it more often than not. That's why they're in your top 4 standings in the entire CDL. So I think that this is a team that has not fallen off. I think they've been holding back some of their strats going into champs, and I think they had a few unfortunate circumstances that have left them out of going further in these tournaments. So I think the Huntsmen are a favorite. I think they can go far. I think they can still win.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, you make a lot of good points, man. It's tough because Chicago, they had a roller coaster season, and we've all sat here and witnessed it. I want to give them the credit of being a top 3 team, but they just haven't been performing like so. But Nameless, you do make a good point. They showed up against New York. That was the second time they faced New York in that tournament. And it is really hard to beat teams 2 times in a row. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give you this round 6 points to 5, which is going to tie things up at 11. Chicago, we're throwing you some bail because we are always hard on you. We're definitely expecting you guys to show up at Champs. Now that the regular season is over, I want to revisit a topic we've discussed on this show, and that is, who is the Rookie of the Year? Now, we've seen a few newcomers enter the CDL and make an impact immediately. You've got Shotz and Illy of the Dallas Empire. I think Mac definitely made quite an impact and, definitely is in the conversation given how he helped the New York Subliners turn around their season. And there's also Awakening, who really helped solidify Florida as a top 4 team. But with all that being said, I'm going to still stick with my original hot take from earlier this season, and that is that Shotz is the Rookie of the Year. Nameless, you weren't on the Shotz train at the start of the season, yet here we are. You're defending the boy now. Why the change of heart, Anthony?
All right, so I absolutely have Shotz as the Rookie of the Year, and here's the reason why. I look at Shotz, and in the beginning of the season where, he was struggling a little bit, right? And he improves, and he doesn't just improve to become some status quo player who's doing his job, right? Where you just look at him and you're like, oh, he's solid. He's a great player. He has improved to become the best player on their team without question. Not only is he the best player on their team, they have been the best team for multiple points in our season. So to be the best player on a team with teammates like Krim, like Clay, like Hook, like Illy, to be the best player on that team with a submachine gun and to win that many events and to be on the best team, I think is extremely impressive as a rookie. I have him up there as the Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's another player you could really argue against him. I just think that he's been such a dynamic player who's adapted to different metas, to different times in the game, and he's been the one shining light for Empire throughout all, their ups and downs that they've had, and he's always been there, always performing. When the rest of the team has an off series or an off tournament, he's still the guy who's consistently playing well, and I think that that's impressive. So I gotta give Shotz some love.
Yeah, Shotzi's definitely come a long way. It's definitely interesting hearing you talk about the entire journey, given that you were on the other side of it. But Miles, man, who else could it possibly be if it's not Shotz?
If we're not giving it to Shotz, and I respect everything that Nameless has said, man, Shotz is unquestionably one of the greatest, in the world right now, and it's been an incredible journey watching him play. But for me, there's a story here to be told about players like Awakening, players like Mac, who have basically come onto squads and transformed them. So let's say Florida Mutineers, it wasn't necessarily like a rags to riches scenario where like he joined the squad and everything was great already. They had their successes, they had their moments, but his consistent 2 events back to back where he went huge, 2 events where they won. I just think that's an incredible addition to a squad. And again, like we talked again about Awakening's performances to be literally career defining. His first steps onto the stage, he knocks everyone out of the park. He blows everyone away. Even at the last home series where they may have been taken out relatively early, he's still putting up a top 3 KD overall. This man is still frying his brains out. The same could be said about Mac to a certain degree. We haven't had as much, time with Mac, in that limelight. The New York Subliners haven't had as much success, but he has been pivotal to the turnaround for that squad. I had New York Subliners as the worst team in the league at the start of this one. I was like, yeah, everyone's got their moments, but I was like, that's a squad who should be doing much better than it is, that has disappointed me time and time again. When Mac joined that team, it just showed like that was the transformation they needed to allow them to be the squad that they should be, and it's been a steady upward progress from here. Do I believe, honestly, that Mac's maybe the standout of the year? I don't think so. I think for me, it's going to be someone like Awakening. It's going to be someone who's just come out of nowhere, boom, and had the biggest impact imaginable. Again, drawing parallels to Simp last year, where he joins the season quite late. His very first event, it's like second place. After that, it's a little rocky, but again, it's that instant impact, and it's having these 2 huge wins. I just draw those parallels to a player who joins the squad, makes a massive difference, and yeah, Shotz may be absurdly consistent across the board in every mode he touches, but I just think that Awakening's had a bigger impact overall.
Nah, man. Shotz did it on land and online. That just trumps every argument. Awakening has been fantastic. I respect everything you said about him and Mac. They both came into, Awakening kind of came into a team that had won a chip before.
Yeah.
So
they were good.
He came into a solid squad. Yeah, he made them better. And he's outshining the rest of the people on the team for the most part. Mac comes into a team that was completely broken, and they get a lot better. So those are definitely the 3 candidates. I just find it to be very difficult to put those guys up against Shotz and what he's done throughout the whole season. It's been greatness.
Yeah, I I believe there's definitely something to be said about these players who've come into the league and made instant changes, like Awakening and like Mac. But Nameless, you made a good point just now. You did it kind of quickly. Shotz has been here since the beginning. He's played on LAN and he's played online, and he's performed well in both. Dallas has been consistently a top team in the league, mainly because of Shotz's play. Whereas I feel like with Florida and with New York, we've seen it kind of go up and down for these teams, more down for New York. They're just now kind of making themselves a viable contender. I mean, is there anything, Miles, to be said about that? The fact that, we haven't really seen these other players perform in a LAN setting.
Yeah, the LAN setting doesn't help, and also just the amount of time we've had with these players doesn't help. And there's a lot of credit to Shotz's story. We've seen him take licks as a player, as an amateur player. We've seen him come into this one as the new guy. He's taken a lot of heat. I mean, I'll never forget the crowd in London shouting at him saying, "Go back to Halo!" Like literally screaming, "Go back to Halo!" to Shotz when he wasn't performing. Like that is insane. And to see a young guy like that take those licks, grow, improve, and now be the guy who I've tweeted about it. I'm sure you haven't. That I think he's one of the best players in the world right now in the game. Almost none. No one does it like Shotz. No one looks like Shotz. I know I'm not supposed to be defending this one, but the boy, he's an absolute unit. You're going to have to bleep that one. It's the truth.
And one last thing to say about it is a lot of the pro players regard Shotz as the best player in the game, alongside players like Celium. So, I mean, I just think that the player's been special, man. I had to show him some love after, harping on him in the beginning of the season on our first episode.
This is where we put the clip in where you're like, Shotz a bust.
I think Shotz a bust.
Wasn't my true opinion, but had to be argued, right?
All for the sake of the show. Well, you know what? You guys both made very convincing arguments. I was definitely swaying in the way of giving this round to Miles, because I think that Awakening and Mac, their instant impact that they made, there's something to be said about that for these players to just come in and just jump into a league where everybody's been playing, everybody's warmed up, things are competitive as ever, and these guys just come in and they perform and they get results. There's something to be said about that. But Shotz, this is a dude who's been here since the beginning of the league. He's played on LAN. He's played online. He's had all the pressure on him. He's playing alongside Clayster and Krim, some of the most decorative Call of Duty players to ever do it, and he's held his own. With that being said, I don't think you can give Rookie of the Year to anybody else but Shotz, and Nameless made that good point about the online and offline. So with that being said, I'm going to give this round to Nameless and the game to Nameless, 5 points to 6, which is going to bring our final count, Nameless 17 and Miles 16. And with that being said, Nameless, you're the winner of our Astro Listener moment, man. You get 60 seconds to pop off. What do you have to say?
Wait. Do I not get an assist? Do I not get an assist for that last one?
Just wait, Miles. So, you know what? Since Miles had to argue some very tough points, I'm going to donate 30 of my seconds in my Listen Up moment to Miles.
Oh my God,
do you want that, Miles?
Mate, you're a philanthropist. You're an angel. You're a good man.
So I have now used up my 30 seconds, giving you my other 30 seconds. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, the floor is now mine. Well, I would like to continue this message of love and cooperation and support of one another during these crazy times. I think this whole year has been nuts, whether it's, everything moving online, COVID, all sorts of, political unrest, you name it. The world is a very scary, dark place, and it needs a little bit more love. So do what you can to help out your mates, help the people around you, talk to someone, find out if they're doing okay. I don't care if we're going over 30 seconds. What are you going to do? Cut the show now? You're going to end this? We're on a rampage, baby. We're trying to change the world together. We're doing it one episode at a time in Contesting the Point.
All right, everybody, that does it for this episode of Contesting the Point. Thanks once again to my guests, Miles and Nameless, for coming through and debating those topics. Nameless, congrats to you again for winning. I know the people in the comments are mad. They can stay mad. And
they can stay mad. Big mad.
Stay mad.
And guys, we'll be back next week for some more Contesting the Point. Until then, take it easy.